Poverty doesn't begin in your wallet, it begins in your mind. You can't fix financial lack by adding more money if the mindset that produced the lack remains. That's why so many people win the lottery and lose it all. Why some receive big promotions and still live paycheck to paycheck. Why others inherit wealth but can't sustain it. Because money magnifies mindset. If the mind is broken, the money will follow. If the heart is small, the opportunity will shrink to fit it. So the real battle isn't between you and the bills, it's between you and the belief systems that have held your family captive for generations. You see, generational poverty is not just an economic condition, it's a mental inheritance. It's the set of invisible ideas passed down like old furniture. The fear of risk, the distrust of abundance, the normalization of struggle, the glorification of surviving over thriving. It's when you grow up hearing money doesn't grow on trees, rich people are greedy, as long as we have enough to get by, and those words become your truth. They become the ceiling of your possibility. You might not even know you're living under a curse because it's disguised as common sense. But the moment you realize that poverty is not your destiny but your dysfunction, transformation begins. The first shift happens when you stop identifying with lack. Many people have internalized poverty as their personality. They say things like, I'm just not good with money, or I'll never be rich. That's not for people like me. But understand this, your identity sets the limits of your experience. When you call yourself broke, your brain begins filtering reality through scarcity. Every idea feels impossible. Every risk feels dangerous. Every opportunity looks like deception. You are subconsciously building walls around your potential while calling it wisdom. The curse keeps repeating, not because you're lazy, but because you've accepted limitation as loyalty to your upbringing. And until you reject that false loyalty, your life will keep producing the same fruit. This is why mindset work is spiritual work. You must renew your mind to align with divine abundance. You were not created to chase scraps. You were designed to create overflow. But here's the problem. Too many people pray for wealth while thinking in poverty. They want the blessings of a rich mindset with the comfort of a broke routine. They want God to enlarge their territory but won't enlarge their thinking, so they end up frustrated watching others multiply while they remain stuck. You can't receive on the level of faith you refuse to develop. When you start thinking differently, your actions follow, your habits evolve, your environment adjusts, and suddenly what was once impossible becomes inevitable. Breaking the generational curse begins when you take responsibility for your thoughts. You stop blaming your parents, your government, your boss, or your neighborhood. You recognize that even if you didn't cause it, you can still correct it. The moment you say, it stops with me, heaven takes notice. Because now, you're not just working for yourself, you're rebuilding an inheritance that was lost. You're rewriting the financial story of your bloodline. That's why this mindset shift is sacred. It's not just about making more money, it's about healing generations of fear and limitation. You're becoming the bridge between what was broken and what will be built. Now, understand this. Mindset is not motivation. Motivation feels good for a moment, but mindset builds discipline. You can't think abundance for a day and expect your world to change. You must reprogram your thoughts daily. You must start speaking wealth even when you don't see it. You must begin acting like a steward long before the resources arrive. Because faith is not pretending, it's preparation. When you start managing the little you have like it's a fortune, you're proving to heaven that you're ready for increase. And when you start viewing every dollar as a seed instead of a symptom, you shift from survival to creation. The key is awareness. The enemy of your destiny isn't lack of money, it's lack of understanding. You don't need more cash to change your life. You need clarity. What you don't understand, you'll always mishandle. That's why financial ignorance is one of the most dangerous forms of poverty. It keeps people enslaved while convincing them they're free. But once you open your eyes to the truth, the system loses its grip. You realize that prosperity is a skill, not luck. And every skill can be learned, practiced, and mastered. When you change your mindset, you change your energy. You start moving differently, talking differently, making decisions from purpose instead of panic. You stop chasing every quick fix and start building systems. You stop complaining about problems and start creating solutions. You become the kind of person who can be trusted with wealth because you've learned to handle yourself. Remember, money is not the goal, it's the byproduct of growth. God will not give you what you can't manage. He blesses structure, not chaos. So before you pray for millions, build the mindset that can sustain it. This is where faith and work collide. Faith gives you vision, but mindset gives you strategy. The curse breaks not just when you believe you can prosper, but when you act like it. When you start reading about money management instead of scrolling. When you start budgeting instead of borrowing. When you start investing instead of spending. When you start teaching your children abundance instead of fear. This is how the chain breaks, one renewed decision at a time. Understand this truth deep in your spirit. You are not cursed because you were born in poverty. You are cursed only when you choose to stay there. And when you rise up and say, this ends with me, the heavens align, the earth responds, and the generational curse starts to crumble under the weight of your obedience. Because a renewed mind is a weapon no curse can withstand. And when your mind shifts, your money follows, your family follows, your future follows. You stop living as a victim of your history and start walking as the architect of your legacy. Making money isn't just a worldly act, it's a spiritual discipline. It's not about greed or gain, it's about growth and stewardship. When God put Adam in the garden, he didn't tell him to relax. He told him to work it, manage it, and multiply it. Work wasn't punishment, it was purpose. It was partnership with the Creator in the process of creation. That means every time you use your gift to produce value, you are walking in divine alignment. Making money becomes holy when your motivation is stewardship, not selfishness. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think money is evil when, in truth, money simply reveals who you are. If your heart is corrupt, money magnifies your greed. If your heart is pure, money magnifies your purpose. The divine principle of making money starts with one word: value. You don't get paid for your time. You get paid for the value you bring to time. That's why two people can work the same hours, but one earns 10 times more, because the marketplace doesn't reward effort, it rewards results. The person who multiplies solutions multiplies income. The one who keeps growing multiplies opportunity. The one who refuses to learn stays stuck in the same cycle. So the first step to divine wealth creation is this: stop waiting for someone to bless you and start becoming a blessing. When you solve bigger problems, you attract bigger provision. When you start thinking about how to serve instead of how to survive, doors start opening that you didn't even knock on. You have to understand that wealth flows through purpose. If you're trying to make money without purpose, you're chasing shadows. That's why so many grind for years and still feel empty. They're making income without making impact. But when you connect your calling to contribution, money becomes a reward for service, not a reason for stress. The reason God gives you gifts, skills, and creativity is so that you can produce fruit, not just for yourself, but for others. That's why poverty is a distortion. It makes you focus on self-preservation instead of creation. But prosperity aligns you with the divine law of giving, producing, and multiplying what's been entrusted to you. Let's talk about the law of exchange. Everything God made operates by exchange. You give time, you get results. You give service, you get reward. You give love, you get growth. So when you refuse to give, you block the flow. Many people pray for more but hoard what they have. They want abundance but operate in fear. But wealth is not gathered by greed, it's attracted by generosity. When you give value first, you activate divine reciprocity. That's why the Bible says, give and it shall be given unto you. Not just in money, but in opportunity, in wisdom, in favor, because giving breaks the grip of scarcity. You cannot outgive a God who multiplies everything you release in faith. But you must also understand this: making money requires mastery, not miracles. God doesn't bless laziness, he blesses diligence. You can pray all day, but if you refuse to learn, to act, to build, your prayers have no soil to grow in. Making money is not about luck, it's about laws. There are divine economic laws, just like natural ones. If you work them, they work for you. The law of sowing and reaping, the law of value, the law of faith in action, the law of stewardship. These are not suggestions, they are systems. And when you align with them, increase becomes inevitable. Because God doesn't bless confusion, he blesses order. Now, let's destroy a myth, the myth that making money requires you to sacrifice your soul. You can make money with integrity. You can prosper without pride. You can grow without greed. But you have to reprogram how you see money. Most people think money is either a master or an enemy, but it's neither. Money is a mirror. It reflects the condition of your character. If you see it as evil, you'll avoid it. If you see it as divine opportunity, you'll manage it with wisdom. And if you manage it well, God can trust you with more. Remember, he gives seed to the sower, not to the spender. That means wealth flows to those who understand purpose, not to those who chase status. Let's bring this down to a practical truth. Making money God's way means identifying the gift he gave you and multiplying it. That gift is your wealth generator. It's your business, your skill, your idea, your voice, your hands, your creativity, whatever you do that adds value to others. But if you hide your gift in fear, you bury your wealth. The parable of the talents shows us this. The one who buried his gift in the ground lost everything, not because he was evil, but because he was afraid. And that's how poverty hides, in fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment. The curse breaks when you start using what you've got instead of complaining about what you don't have. To make money righteously, you must embrace excellence. Excellence is not perfection, it's commitment to doing your best with what you have. When you operate in excellence, you stand out. Excellence attracts favor. It creates trust, it builds reputation, it opens doors that hustle never could. Because people will pay you for excellence long before they pay you for effort. Mediocrity is expensive. Excellence is profitable. And when you commit to mastering your craft, God will bring divine connections, mentors, and opportunities that multiply your results. Lastly, you must remember that the purpose of money is not accumulation, but activation. God blesses you to be a blessing. The moment money becomes your master, you lose spiritual alignment. But when you see money as a tool for impact, you invite supernatural acceleration. The wealth you create is not meant to end with you, it's meant to flow through you. Your business should bless families. Your ideas should open doors for others. Your profit should fund purpose. That's how you break the generational curse, by shifting from consumer to creator, from taker to transformer. Because the truth is, you can't pray your way out of a financial pattern you keep repeating. You must renew your mind, realign your habits, and rebuild your systems according to divine principles. And once you do, making money will no longer be a mystery, it will be the manifestation of obedience. It won't feel forced, it'll feel natural. You'll start seeing opportunities others overlook. You'll attract abundance not because you're chasing it, but because you've become the kind of person it's attracted to. You'll realize that making money God's way isn't about chasing more, it's about becoming more. And when you do, the curse of poverty loses its power over your bloodline forever. Making money is only half the equation. Managing it is where the real mastery begins. Because you don't keep what you don't respect. Most people don't have a money problem, they have a management problem. They keep praying for increase, but don't have a plan for the income they already have. And the truth is this: God doesn't bless disorganization. He blesses structure, he blesses stewardship. You can't ask for more when you can't account for what you've got. Management is the bridge between receiving and retaining. It's what separates those who grow wealth from those who lose it. You can't manage money emotionally, you must manage it intentionally. Every dollar you earn needs a destination. If you don't tell your money where to go, it'll go wherever it wants. And money, like energy, flows toward chaos when left unattended. So if you're serious about breaking generational poverty, you must learn how to manage your money with discipline and divine wisdom. That means creating systems that serve your vision, not your feelings. Because your emotions will tell you to buy comfort, but your vision will tell you to build capacity. Your emotions want instant pleasure. Your purpose demands long-term progress. Let's start here. Money management begins with clarity. You cannot change what you refuse to track. You need to know exactly how much you earn, how much you spend, and how much you invest. Too many people live in financial fog. They make money, but it disappears because there's no awareness. Awareness is the foundation of stewardship. When you start writing it down, when you start looking at the numbers with honesty, you take back control. The curse of poverty thrives in ignorance, but it dies in clarity. Every time you take inventory, you're declaring that you're ready for more. Now, let's talk about vision, because management without vision is maintenance. God never called you to maintain. He called you to multiply. That means your money should have an assignment that aligns with your destiny. If you don't have a clear vision for your finances, you'll always live beneath your potential. You'll end up working hard just to stay afloat instead of building a legacy. But when you attach your money to a vision, a business, a mission, a purpose, it starts working for you instead of against you. That's when your spending becomes investment, your saving becomes strategy, and your giving becomes generational transformation. Let's deal with something uncomfortable: waste. Many people don't lack income, they leak it. Every unnecessary subscription, every impulsive purchase, every treat yourself moment with no discipline attached, these are silent wealth killers. You can't build freedom on financial leaks. Every dollar you waste is a soldier that could have been sent to fight for your future. And when you stop wasting, you start winning. Management isn't about restriction, it's about redirection. You're not saying no to pleasure, you're saying yes to purpose. Every wise choice compounds into freedom later. Now, I need you to understand something crucial. Money reveals character. How you handle money shows how you handle responsibility. If you can't manage $100, you won't manage $10,000. If you can't manage $10,000, you won't manage $1 million. That's not punishment, it's protection. God won't promote you to a level that would destroy you. Financial maturity is spiritual maturity. You prove your readiness by how you handle the small things. The parable of the talents made this clear. The faithful were rewarded, the fearful were replaced. The moment you start managing money with purpose, heaven recognizes you as trustworthy. You also have to embrace the principle of budgeting, not as a burden, but as a blessing. Budgeting is not about saying, I can't afford it. It's about saying, I choose where my money goes. It's a declaration of control. Every budget is a spiritual statement that you are a steward, not a slave. It's how you tell your money what to do instead of wondering where it went. A budget isn't about limitation, it's about liberation. Because once you learn how to manage money intentionally, you stop living in fear of it. You move from surviving to strategizing. You stop praying for miracles and start operating in mastery. Another principle of management is saving with purpose. Saving is not hoarding, it's preparing. The Bible says the wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Savings is how you build stability. It's how you create margin so you can make decisions from peace instead of panic. But saving alone isn't the goal. You save to invest. You save to create. You save so you can seize opportunities when they appear. Saving gives you time freedom. It gives you breathing room. It gives you options, and options are power. Let's talk about debt, because this is where many people lose their freedom. Debt is not always evil, but it's dangerous when it owns you. Some debt builds, some debt bleeds. Debt that creates assets is leverage. Debt that funds liabilities is slavery. If you're borrowing to consume, you're building someone else's empire while destroying your own. The key is to shift from consumer thinking to creator thinking. Stop asking, can I afford the payment, and start asking, will this purchase produce? Every dollar you borrow should have the ability to work for you, not weigh you down. Because debt without strategy is delay disguised as progress. Finally, understand that management requires emotional maturity. Most financial mistakes aren't mathematical, they're emotional. People spend to feel better, to impress, to escape, to fill a void. But when you find your identity and purpose, you no longer need to prove anything through purchases. You begin to operate from peace, not pressure. You stop competing, stop comparing, and start constructing. The disciplined always outlast the emotional. You can't build wealth if your wallet moves every time your feelings do. And here's the beauty of management. Once you master it, you unlock multiplication, because God increases what you manage well. Every time you budget, every time you save, every time you invest wisely, you're showing heaven that you can be trusted with more. And trust always attracts increase. When you align wisdom with work, the flow of favor finds you, because money doesn't stay where it's wasted, it stays where it's respected. So, if you truly want to break the generational curse of poverty, start managing your money like you're managing destiny, because you are. Every dollar has a purpose. Every choice is a seed. Every plan is a prophecy. When you stop letting money master you and start mastering it with vision, wisdom, and intention, your entire bloodline shifts. You move from chaos to clarity, from lack to leverage, from anxiety to abundance. That's when your money stops being a burden and becomes a builder. And when you master management, multiplication becomes inevitable. Once you learn how to make money and manage it with purpose, the next level is multiplication, the principle that turns enough into more than enough. Because making money brings income, managing money brings order, but multiplying money brings overflow. And overflow is where you move from surviving to thriving, from paying bills to creating wealth, from living paycheck to purpose. Multiplication is not just a financial strategy, it's a spiritual law. God designed increase to flow through those who understand stewardship and sowing. You see, multiplication doesn't begin with a bigger paycheck. It begins with a bigger mindset. The wealthy don't think in terms of earning, they think in terms of expanding. The poor think in terms of survival, the wealthy think in terms of systems. One group spends what they get, the other multiplies what they keep. That's the difference between scarcity and abundance. One reacts to money, the other directs it. And when you begin to direct your money toward growth, you activate divine principles that attract increase. Let's start with this truth. God never gave you wealth, He gave you the power to get wealth. That means the potential to multiply is already inside you. But that power is only activated through faith, vision, and action. The moment you decide to multiply what you have, no matter how small, you become a participant in divine economics. Remember the parable of the talents. The master didn't reward those who kept what they had. He rewarded those who multiplied it. Because God doesn't bless maintenance, He blesses movement. He doesn't increase what you hide. He increases what you use. Now, let's make this practical. There are only 3 ways to multiply money: through people, through systems, and through purpose. 1, multiply through people. No one builds wealth alone. Every great business, every empire, every ministry, every movement was built through people. You can't multiply if you refuse to delegate, collaborate, and elevate others. The poor mindset says, I can do it all myself. The wealthy mindset says, who can I empower to multiply this? You must learn to invest in people who can increase your capacity, mentors who guide you, partners who support you, and teams who execute your vision. People are multipliers. When you add the right people to your purpose, your results grow exponentially. The wrong people drain your potential. The right people double it. 2, multiply through systems. Systems are how you turn labor into leverage. A system works when you're asleep. It's the difference between income that depends on you and income that depends on what you've built. If you're the only one working in your business, you don't own a business, you own a job. Systems take what you do once and make it work 1,000 times. Think automation, structure, scalability. The moment you start creating processes that produce results without your constant presence, you've moved from hustling to multiplying. Systems don't make you less spiritual, they make you more strategic. And God blesses strategy. 3, multiply through purpose. Purpose gives your wealth divine direction. When your motive is impact, not just income, God multiplies your efforts. Money with no mission loses meaning. But when your goal is to build something that blesses others, to create opportunities, to serve, to uplift, to break generational chains, you tap into a flow that can't be stopped. The kingdom multiplies through purpose. When you align your money with a higher mission, increase becomes automatic. Why? Because you've become a vessel, not a vault. You're not hoarding wealth, you're hosting it. Now, multiplication doesn't happen by accident. It happens through discipline and delayed gratification. You must resist the temptation to consume your increase. Every time God gives you more, it's not just for spending, it's for sowing. You multiply by planting seeds, not eating them. That seed could be an investment, a business idea, a new skill, or even generosity. The seed leaves your hand, but it never leaves your life. It returns multiplied. The principle is clear. What you give multiplies, what you hoard decays. Every farmer knows you don't eat all your harvest, you plant some back. That's how the cycle of increase continues. Let's go deeper. Multiplication is a mindset that sees potential where others see limitation. You may only have a small amount right now, but in your hands, with the right vision, it can become much. Remember the widow with the jar of oil? She had just enough to feed herself and her son, but when she poured it in obedience, it kept flowing until every vessel was filled. That's multiplication. When faith meets obedience. You may be starting small, but small becomes significant when you see it as seed. The problem is not the size of your resources, it's the size of your revelation. You can't multiply what you don't believe can grow. And here's a truth most people miss. Multiplication requires mastery over fear. Fear keeps you from investing, from expanding, from stepping into new opportunities. The servant who buried his talent wasn't lazy, he was afraid. Fear makes you protect what you have instead of multiplying it. It whispers, what if I fail? But faith says, what if it works? You can't walk in abundance while worshiping security. The biggest enemy of multiplication is comfort. You can't grow if you're trying to stay safe. Growth always requires risk-calculated, faith-driven risk. Now, I need you to understand something powerful. Multiplication is not just about money, it's about impact. When you multiply what you have, you multiply who you become. You expand your influence, your capacity, your ability to bless others. Wealth isn't just what you accumulate, it's what you activate in others. The more you multiply your resources, the more you multiply your reach. And the more you multiply your reach, the more lives you transform. That's true generational wealth, not just inheritance, but influence. But here's the key. Never forget the source of your increase. You are the vessel, not the provider. God is the multiplier. Your job is obedience. His job is overflow. You handle the stewardship. He handles the scale. Stay humble in your success. Because the moment you take credit for multiplication, you cut off the flow of favor. Pride breaks the pipeline of prosperity, but gratitude keeps it open. Always remember, you're blessed to be a blessing. The more you multiply, the more you're called to give, to teach, to lift others up. So, if you want to multiply your money, start by multiplying your value. Learn more, grow more, serve more. Multiply your faith, believe bigger, sow deeper, trust further. Multiply your discipline, protect your focus, eliminate distractions, stay consistent. Multiplication isn't magic, it's mastery. It's when divine principles meet diligent practice. It's when you stop chasing money and start creating momentum. And once you master multiplication, you don't just change your finances, you change your family tree. You break the curse of poverty not by what you make, but by what you multiply. Because when you multiply, you create systems that outlive you. You create wealth that continues working while you rest. You create legacy, something that blesses generations you'll never meet. That's what God wants for you, not just riches, but righteousness through resources. Because money in the hands of the wise becomes a weapon against poverty, ignorance, and fear. Multiplication is your birthright, but it's also your responsibility. So stop waiting for a miracle and start managing, mastering, and multiplying what you already have. Every seed in your hand has harvest potential if you're willing to plant it. Every gift you've been given can produce more if you're willing to use it. Don't let fear bury your talent. Don't let comfort choke your calling. Multiply what you have and watch God multiply who you are. That's how you break the curse, build wealth, and bless generations to come. There comes a time in every person's life when they have to make a divine decision, a decision that changes the trajectory of not just their own life, but their entire bloodline. And that decision is this: the curse of poverty ends with me. Because poverty isn't just a lack of money, it's a mindset, a pattern, a spiritual condition that reproduces itself through fear, ignorance, and complacency. And if you don't break it, it doesn't just affect your wallet, it infects your lineage. You were not born to pass down debt, struggle, and scarcity. You were born to pass down wisdom, wealth, and divine dominion. To break the generational curse of poverty, you must understand what it really is. Poverty is not just the absence of money, it's the absence of vision. It's what happens when people stop believing that increase is possible for them. It's when they settle for survival instead of reaching for significance. It's when they trade their God-given potential for comfort and call it contentment. Poverty begins in the mind before it ever shows up in the bank. That's why if you don't fix your mind, no amount of money will fix your life. You can give a poor thinker $1 million, and in a year, they'll be back where they started because poverty follows patterns, not paychecks. The first step in breaking that curse is to renounce the mindset of limitation. You've got to stop saying, this is just how our family is. You've got to stop believing that struggle is your portion. God didn't design you to barely make it. He designed you to multiply, to expand, to dominate. The same God who gave Abraham the power to prosper gave you the same promise. You are a seed of greatness. and seeds are meant to grow. So you've got to uproot every belief that says you can't, every word that says you're not enough, every pattern that tells you to play small. Because the curse of poverty thrives in agreement. The moment you stop agreeing with limitation, you stop empowering it. Next, you've got to educate your generation. Ignorance is the fuel that keeps poverty alive. Most people stay poor not because they're incapable, but because they're uninformed. They don't understand how money works, how value flows, how systems operate. You can't break a curse if you don't replace it with knowledge. That's why you must become a lifelong student of wisdom, learn how to make money, manage it, multiply it, and most importantly, move it with purpose. When you teach your children how to think about money, you give them a future that cannot be stolen. Teach them that money is not evil, the love of money is. Teach them that wealth is not wickedness, waste is. Teach them that being broke is not humble, it's unwise. The Bible says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That means your responsibility isn't just to make enough for you, it's to create overflow for generations. And hear me clearly, breaking poverty is not about chasing riches. It's about building righteousness with resources. Because money without meaning will make you miserable. But when you align your wealth with God's will, it becomes a weapon for good. When you prosper in your purpose, you can fund dreams, feed families, build schools, and transform communities. Wealth in the hands of the righteous changes the world. And that's why the enemy works overtime to keep believers broke, distracted, and doubtful, because he knows a wealthy, wise, and worshiping person is dangerous to darkness. Poverty keeps people praying for miracles instead of producing them. But you are called to be the miracle, the one who changes everything. Now, let's talk about patterns. Poverty moves through families like an unseen inheritance. It's passed down not in DNA, but in decision making. Your parents did what they could with what they knew. But if what they knew kept them bound, it's your job to learn something new. Don't curse them, complete them. You break the curse not by judging your ancestors, but by redeeming what they could not finish. Every generation is supposed to go higher. Your ceiling should be your children's floor. But that won't happen if you repeat what you were raised in. You can't break a curse you're still comfortable with. You've got to get uncomfortable enough to grow, disciplined enough to delay gratification, and faithful enough to follow through. You break poverty when you build systems that outlast emotion. Start by creating habits that create wealth, saving before spending, investing before indulging, learning before leisure. Build structures, multiple streams of income, automated savings, a clear vision for your money. Poverty loves confusion, but prosperity loves clarity. Don't just work for money, make money work for you. Create systems that make your presence optional, but your impact permanent. Remember, the goal is not just income, it's independence. Not just profit, it's purpose. And don't miss this. Breaking the curse of poverty requires breaking the spirit of entitlement. Nobody owes you anything. The world doesn't owe you success. God has given you power, not permission to prosper. That means you got to get up and work your gift. You got to discipline your mind, your habits, your time. Too many people pray for harvest without planting seeds. They want blessings without stewardship. But God doesn't bless laziness. He blesses faith in motion. Faith without works is dead. You've got to put your faith to work until your work produces fruit. Every great person who escaped poverty did it not by luck, but by law. The law of sowing and reaping, the law of discipline, the law of faith and action. You can't expect multiplication while living in mediocrity. And here's the deeper truth. You break the curse of poverty through transformation, not transaction. Getting more money won't make you wealthy if you haven't become the person who can handle it. You must become the kind of person who attracts, manages, and multiplies increase. Because prosperity starts within. Renew your mind daily. Declare abundance over your life. Stop saying, I can't afford it, and start saying, how can I create it? Stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a creator. God gave you ideas, gifts, and the ability to produce wealth. Don't waste it on worry. Don't let fear choke your future. You are equipped with everything you need to rise. And when you finally rise, don't just celebrate, teach others. You are the curse breaker, the chain destroyer, the one who changes the narrative of your bloodline. Your obedience today becomes your children's freedom tomorrow. Every sacrifice you make, every dollar you save, every skill you learn, every principle you apply, it's not just for you. It's for the generations that will never know the pain you endured. That's legacy. That's kingdom wealth. That's the blessing that makes rich and adds no sorrow. So today, decide that the cycle of lack ends with you. No more broken mindsets, no more waiting for rescue, no more shrinking to fit other people's comfort zones. You are not ordinary. You are chosen to establish prosperity with purpose. God will bless the work of your hands, but only if your hands are working. He will multiply your seeds, but only if you're sowing. He will expand your territory, but only if you're walking in obedience. You are the Abraham of your generation, called to come out from what was and step into what can be. The curse ends when you do the opposite of what created it, when you start building instead of borrowing, planting instead of consuming, learning instead of complaining, and believing instead of doubting. That's when heaven opens. That's when your last name becomes blessed. That's when future generations will look back and say, it started with you. So rise up, break the chains, build the legacy. Because when you decide that poverty ends with you, it really does.